This show sucks. Let me. I'm just playing. Star Wars Andor, season one. Now, granted, I really wasn't gonna waste time doing an spoiler review on this because I just want to get it out here right here and now. I when this story was first announced, or this series was supposed to be announced, because it's only supposed to be like two season limited kind of series. I was like, you want to make a show around a guy that we know is gonna freaking die in Rogue One, who had a very like I want to say like a short blip in so far as Star Wars canon, but it's still a significant part of the canon. But it's like it's the same thing with how I felt about Cara Dune. It's like I just got like kind of like annoyed after that little announcement. Of course, they didn't go through with that because the actress who playing Cara Dune, said some very transphobic stuff. So they kind of axed that. But even still, if that any of that didn't transpire, I will still be like, yeah, I'm pretty sure they'll have some great writers on it. It can look as fantastic as the Mandalorian, but it's like it's the same thing with like the guy who played the Marshal in the Mandalorian. It's like just because you got an actor playing like a fantastic role in a supporting role, very fantastically in a series, doesn't mean like they did they said the exact same thing about Madison and She-Hulk. And it's like, no, y'all need to cool your freaking jets. Just because they're hilarious or awesome in this moment, you don't need. It's the same thing when a lot of people have issue with Boba Fett. They're cool in the moment. They're best at supporting. Sometimes that's gotta be okay. Not everybody needs their own little show. And it's like it's like no shame on the actor himself. He still did a great job. I reviewed Rogue One throughout my Star Wars chronological order spoiler review of all the movies and TV shows, which you can all see on my YouTube channel, youtube.com/talkativecarl. Go up on this channel, look up, because I was trying to get it all through before the Kenobi series came out. So that way I have all the Star Wars stuff all up on the channel for you guys to hear my thoughts on each one. And it's just you gotta slow down, people. I don't care. Andor did his duty. I don't care about some bartender that Obi-Wan bumped into on Mos Eisley one time. And he was played by, I don't know, Kevin Hart. And it's like, oh, I gotta know his story because he was so great in the dynamic between him and all these characters. It's so fantastic. I gotta know his story. And then all of a sudden, it kind of crap gets greenlit, and it's like, I don't care. Let them just be one-off supporting characters, background characters, bit characters. Just let them be. Because it's like, you used to treat that as like a special thing. But now it's kind of like a mandate, and it doesn't feel, personally, I just don't like it. I don't care for it. I don't care how good the actor is at the role. The role is just, sometimes they just gotta be supporting characters. That is it. If they get like hired for another project, then they can probably be the little lead thing because they were so great in this other thing. But you gotta slow your roll. And it's like, okay, why would I want to know what led him to be part of the rebellion? Because we got enough of his story, at least. Of course, I'll get into the story of the series in a second, but it's just like, yeah, I'm pretty sure you can find some great writers to feed in the narrative of what get him to this point in Rogue One, but it just like like after Rogue One, did you hear anybody say like and cry out like, how did Andor get to this point? All I heard was people was like, oh, Andor was, Rogue One was cool. It was a dope. It was actually like a war movie. It was really dope and blah blah blah. Nobody was crying out about like how Andor needs to be like a story of Andor needs to be told. It's like no, it's a short thing. It's kind of like when you call those it starts with an A, anthology. It's kind of one of those kind of anthology things where it's like it's a little blip in the radar that fits in the bigger puzzle of Star Wars canon, but you don't need to focus on that one little piece. I mean, that's how I personally feel about it. I might be in a minority in this because everybody else in the world, at least not everybody, but a large majority of people, thought it was a great idea, and they're loving it. But I'm just glad there's only two, because initially they wanted 5 seasons. So I was like, you pushing it, okay? But they changed the tune and made it like 2 seasons limiter, and they might do like a short time jump just to fit everything in, because by the end of the second season, when the series ends, it's going to lead into Rogue One, kind of like the way Rogue One just weaved right into The New Hope, which I thought was pretty clever. So anyway, you got Andor seemingly on his little personal mission to find some sister, which, by the way, they never brought up again. It was only a thing that, was on his mind for the first 3 episodes, and they kind of let that drop, from that point forward. Why'd you add it in if it wasn't going to be his main focus is to find his sister? Now you got caught up in all this other mess. I was like, why did you even bother? And of course, the creator of this is behind this series. He mentioned many times he's not like a big Star Wars fan. So that's probably why people like it, because some people say like sometimes you don't need a person who are super invested into Star Wars to tell a story, because they might get bogged down with all this lore and Jedi stuff, which is another thing. People like just love it, the fact that there's 0 Jedi involved in this. I'm like, okay, I like the Jedi stuff. I like the Jedi canon and lore. Not to say like I didn't care for the regular people and the struggles they going through. I did. I cared a lot about that during like the Clone Wars series, and at least most of it in Rebels. And I think people had like need like a war fix in their Star Wars. You got Clone Wars and Rebels to feed that fuel to the fire. And it's like, okay, we understood like what's going on below with the common people and what they're going through, and these little pockets of rebellions going on. But I guess, and then also the Bad Batch, that kind of feeds that, scratch that itch for you guys. But it's just like, I guess people want to know like the emergence of the Rebel Alliance, like how to get started. You could just have like an entirely different show altogether with showing you the, like, just call it, well, you can't call it Star Wars Rebels, but I think Rebels should have been like the show that shows you the spark of the rebellion. They kind of did, but like, what's the absolute, creation? I mean, it'd been great to have some kind of bleed effect between Bad Batch being involved in creation of the Rebel Alliance and teaching common people how to fight and everything like that. But just have like a Star Wars show just dedicated into the creation of the Rebel Alliance. I don't know. I don't know what you could have called it. Rebel Alliance, or or just Alliance, or something like that. and just focus on the creation of rebellion and everything like that. You don't need to like suck around Andor for that, personally. But anyway, Andor, along his little personal focus on trying to find his sister, he ended up getting caught up, trying to almost getting mugged by these two. They're not Imperials per se, but they are Imperial adjacent, just very gruntish thing, kind of employees that turns out to be kind of like just like complete assholes. It's kind of like, the attitude of Biff from Back to the Future, and they try to mug him, and of course, being very skillful as Cassian Andor is, he managed to put both of them down, and he accidentally kills one, but can't have no witnesses, so he just executes the other. And the show gets hardcore, and they kind of push the lines as far, because I think thanks to Moon Knight, you can no doubt can push the lines here and there. Most people call this like more adult Star Wars. Slightly though, it's not like full on porn or anything like that. But even still, there's one female supporting character, forgot her name, that she's close friends with Andor, and you see her hooking up with kind of sort of her boyfriend or whatever. It wasn't really clear because they wasn't living together. But you see her the next day coming, in this guy's room, putting on clothes. You can see her wearing panties, and so you can clearly establish, like, yeah, oh, people have sex here. This is a slightly more adult Star Wars. So you see like one of the Skarsgård guys. There's like at least 5 of them. I can't really get their first names straight. I'm never good with names, but I know they're all the Skarsgård guys. The oldest one, I should say. He's awesome in this role, and he got some connections, and he works in Coruscant under this assumed identity as like this running this high antique kind of place, but in the back he's like secretly getting things together for different rebel cells. But this is like very early in the inception, where these the rebel alliance isn't an alliance. They're just different groups of different rebels doing their own little thing, and they're not communicating because there's zero trust, because it's kind of like zero hope. I won't say zero hope, but it's like trying to push things into fighting back against the Empire that's been all out just oppressing planet after planet. And you see Mothma. I'm glad this actress is just playing the hell out of this role, and she goes to Skarsgård under assumed predilection that she's buying like antiques from him and whatever, but she helped funding for the rebel cells to fight back and everything like that, while she's still under the guise of working as a senator and trying to not breaking away from the Empire or speaking out totally against the Empire, but trying to like, oh, we're like doing peace talks. I'm like a humanitarian kind of thing. So I'm a Coruscant girl, but like I want to keep the peace and blah blah blah. But she knows that the Empire is grossly overstepping their bounds and just becoming like a huge, just like a dictatorship. Then I think Mothma early on was probably the only thing I was very interested in this series. Everything else, it's like look, I can't say this show is bad. It's far from it. Like early on, it's like the first half of it's 12 episodes. The first half, I was like trying outside of Mothma. I was like trying It's like it seems like I was forcing myself to like this because I it's like I'm trying to get into this, and it's like all the pieces are there. The cinematography is fantastic. The score is fantastic. The acting is good. The writing is good. It's like, but why is it not grabbing me? It's like I'm struggling. I'm trying to force myself to like it because it's like all the pieces are there. It's kind of like the opposite of Morbius. It's like I know it's bad, and everything is telling me like I shouldn't like it, but I do. And this is kind of like the polar opposite. Like it's probably just me. It's just like I trying to find some way to engage, but it wasn't until like halfway into it where Cassian gets kind of like stop and frisk kind of situation, and just like got these shitty ass officers just like throwing their weight around and just locking random people up for bullshit charges. He gets locked up and put in this kind of like deep sea prison or thing where you see uh Andy Serkis there, and this is when I got hooked. At this point, it was when like he's trapped there and it feels like claustrophobic and it's like intimidating. Everything's kind of it's right when like it feels like the Empire's like you feel what Cassian and the others are feeling when it's like it gets overwhelming with Empire presence. And this is when I was like, okay, all right, now I'm getting engaged, but it's just like it's like it's just like it wasn't to that point when it's like God, I was like nothing's grabbing me. It's like I'm not really enjoying this, and like friends of mine telling me I was like if you're not like into it, you don't have to force yourself to be into it. It's just like it's just not for you, and it's like overall it's probably not for me. It's like it's not like it's bad. I get why it's good. Like everything in my brain's telling me from what I'm gathering, yeah, this is good writing. Is like the cinematography is fantastic, but it's just like my heart is not, receiving it. It's definitely better than like Rise of Skywalker or Last Jedi, but it's just like I can at least very much say I was engaged in those movies more so than Andor, despite the crappiness of Rise of Skywalker. But like I said, maybe it's just like I'm more into the Jedi stuff than most people are getting tired of. I'm not sure. I think I like the Kenobi series more so than most. Granted, I do say I think it's been more beneficial if they just focus on Kenobi and Vader rather than the little Leia, which she could just had her own show. We can just focus on little Leia and her little scampy exploits and stuff like that. Little Home Alone type of stuff with little Leia, because she kind of like took the focus away when it's supposed to be about like Kenobi going through PTSD and trying to reconnect, or at least struggle to his connection with the Force after losing so much. But it's because beneficial of Ewan McGregor and Hayden Christensen, I would still manage to get enjoyment out of this series. But you can check out my Kenobi season 1 spoiler review up on the channel. Not sure if there's ever going to be like a season 2 of that. I kind of hope so, because Ewan McGregor and Hayden Christensen knocked that apart, especially Hayden Christensen, because we was like so invested in that because he got the short end of the stick in the prequels, and we all know he's a great actor, and the fact that he got a second bite of the apple and showing his acting chops, he blew everything out of the water. I love Vader scenes, I love Kenobi scenes. Just like it's like you thought Rogue One showed off how terrifying fucking Vader is. This dude literally just walks in the middle of this little small little mining town and starts force pulling random people out of their homes and just snapping necks. Just what? And it's like this teenager, he just snapped this. You see it, and it's like I said, Star Wars is starting to get a little bit R-rated. And it's like, holy shit, he just snapped a teenager's fucking neck just for the sheer fuckery of it. And it's like, holy shit. And then he lights up some coal on fire and just force pulls Kenobi through the fire just to get his licks in, because you left me in a fire, I'm leaving you in a fucking fire, you son of a bitch. And you hear like Kenobi screaming, and it's like, holy shit, like this dude's fucking terrifying. He's like a movie monster. The guy just like a tear through everything. And this is Anakin. He's like one of the greatest and dangerous Jedi throughout the prequels into Clone Wars. And like, you know, it's like he flipped that and used it, instead of using it for good, he's using it for evil, and he's just like a sheer terror. But it's like I said, there's no Jedi in this, but it's just like, you know, I like the Jedi stuff. Well, little governmental political intrigue that I found fascinating was with Moth Mothma and her little you know, situation with her family. Because yeah, you know, why wouldn't Moth Mothma have like a family? The husband is, you know, I don't want to say he's a degenerate, but it's like he's just like almost anybody else in government in Coruscant. He's kind of like, you know, sitting pretty. He doesn't care about, you know, outside, you know, what the little people are dealing with, as long as he's comfortable in his little bubble, along with all these other rich people. And I think like her teenage daughter is probably the shittiest person in the entire film, because she just like giving her mother so much shit and attitude. And it's like I was kind of half hoping, like, God, you know, if this girl finds out what her mother really doing, I don't want no, I completely understand. Like, I'm so sorry, I didn't know, and they make up and like, is, you know, all is good and so, no. Keep that fucking same energy. This little shit needs to be grounded for her little shitty ass fucking attitude, and she needs to be told about herself. But of course, her father is kind of like, you know, not helping with the whole parenting thing, and like telling his kid to, you know, watch how she talks with her mother and all this other stuff, or ground her or something, or at the very least, bring the girl along to see what you do as a humanitarian, so she can get a understanding what's it like outside of these walls, and get some kind of, you know, reality check. Yeah, I didn't like that daughter. She drives me fucking up the wall. But then you realize, because Andor gets recruited by Skarsgård to help with his mission, and he meets up with these little ragtag group of, like, you know, people, one of which is like, you know, working as a double agent for these Imperial people in this little facility on this planet. This female who's running this show happens to be the cousin of Moth Mothma. I thought that was pretty a surprising thing. I thought that was really cool. And of course she's you know, I was in a relationship with one of these other women in the group, but you realize you know, Cashin was like starting to warm up to her, and they got like a thing, but like, you know, that's neither here nor there. I thought that was like, okay, this is kind of interesting. But and then you get this little this ship person, like, you know, with a chip on her shoulder kind of thing, and then of course it's kind of like Ocean's 11, but with everybody got their little dynamic. And then there's one little young kid with, you know, a little more hopeful. It's like, oh God, you're gonna die. And it's like, you can't be like too hopeful in these kind of situations. It's kind of like The Walking Dead. Anyone who has the most optimism and hopeful and anybody who cannot be ultimately good in these kind of things, they have to die off. Is that kind of trope that kind of wish that kind of like really flipped on its head and they end up being right and turn out right in the end and be all right in the end. Uh, they pull off this heist and would set off a chain of events that seems to backfire on a lot of people who pulled this off or who's adjacent to it. Then you got this female Imperial officer who looks like she got like a, like so wildly, I won't say wildly tight, but just like her tight hair and tight clothes and like, very Nazi-esque kind of clothing. Clearly, that's what the Empire is pretty much based off of. Uh, uh, and then you got this guy, Shiro, who you didn't think was going to be like a huge thing, but it turns out he's trying to put himself as like a de facto arch enemy of Cash and Andor, and it's like it seems like one of those whiny little button pushers who seems like a mama's boy, not so mama's boy kind of attitude, and then he's got super obsessed and he's like wants to do good for the Empire. He's wants to bring order to the Empire instead of just being good with what he's got. Is like you want people to like bring their best foot forward and give it 110%, but not in this kind of like setting. Got all that going on. Then he working with this Scottish dude that's like all in on war. It's pretty much like just like a Braveheart dude. Who's all in on trying to like bring the hammer down kind of attitude. They get in trouble because they stepped outside the bounds and they get kind of like demoted to someplace else, but he cannot let this fucking go. And then he ends up stalking this woman who seems to be like one of the most competent ones here and trying to weed out who was the cause of this terrorist attack and all that is going on. And then you get like a moment with Skarsgård talking with another double agent he has working for him, right in like almost in the exact office where you see a lot of this little meetings with this woman and her boss. I keep blanking on her name. I'm sorry. The wildly tight woman. This, if I, if you know what I'm talking about. That you follow along throughout like her side of the Empire stuff, and there's an awesome dialogue between this double agent and Skarsgård, where this double agent wants to be done with it all because he has like a new baby. He doesn't want to be mixed up in this anymore, and Skarsgård just tells him about how like in a not so threatening way, it's like I have to sacrifice a lot. I had to sacrifice my morality and compromise a lot of myself. I have to kill that every day to do what I gotta do because we need heroes out there. And it's like I do what I do in hopes of having somebody else see the sunrise while I probably will not. And it's like the whole entire dialogue was really well done. And it's just like, it kind of, that at that moment, with that speech, what it tells me heightens the importance of Luke Skywalker just a couple of years from this point going forward, when New Hope starts, is that everything is hanging on to the point where it's like this kid can, well, they don't know about this kid, but it brings up the rise of the Rebel Alliance, which Luke wants to join initially, before he even realized he was Force sensitive, and meeting with Kenobi and knowing his destiny and everything that transpired in the original trilogy. So all that kind of like feed, at least personally to me, it kind of feeds in the importance of Luke Skywalker so much more. So I give the show that. The prison situation kind of reminds me of face off when they're wearing a boots to keep them magnetized to the ground, but it's like not the exact same thing because they're barefoot, but the automatic floor system kind of neutralizes them to keep them in place. So it's always kind of like a floor, something always with the floor where it has some kind of effect on the prisoners to keep them neutralized. Uh, and you come to realize that they're making these kind of things. They don't know what they're making. Which in post credit scene of this, you realize it's little robots that help building this Death Star. Uh, which people always been wondering, like, okay, ever since the Clerks movie, like, who was building Death Star, before it got blown up? It was like human people. No, they primarily got like these little robot drone things, putting this stuff together. Uh, Efficient and on time. Uh, but they realize, all these little prisoners they bringing in, whether they did something or not, most likely not, they're just here, and you think they're only here for just a 2-3 years, which is bullshit charges, like I said anyway. But it turns out when uh, one of them seems to be being released, they just moving to a different floor. Once word got around, one floor got completely annihilated. And once word got around, it's like you come to realize, it's like, well, we're never going to leave. Because as soon as one floor realizes that, when one, which I'm finding odd, it's like this never happened before. It's like when you move one person to from one location to the next under the guise that he's being let loose, you don't think word's gonna start spreading? But anyway, they end up breaking out, and Cassian reaches back out. He has this kind of mother that found him on his, as a kid on this planet, which are surrounded by all these little orphan children, these Lord of Flies type of thing, and it was never fully explained, like what's going on with them. And it's like I said, they kind of dropped all of that along with the sister. Like I said, that you would think that would have been the focus of the season, and not this other stuff. This other stuff should be like maybe running parallel, but the Empire, by and large, shouldn't be so focused on finding this Andor guy. But you get to see Saw Gerrera, which is always fun to see. Saw Gerrera, Forrest Whitaker always knocks it out of the park. I'm pretty sure by by the end of season 2, you'll get to see like Mads Mikkelsen and his daughter showing up again for possible cameos towards the end of the next season. That'll be great. I mean, yeah, and then like the mother, who's already feeble but still ready to fight back, trying to encourage Cassian Andor to like rise up with them, but he just doesn't want to be involved in this. He doesn't believe in the cause, and it's like he just want to just look out for himself by and large. And you get this, like, I like this cute little like pseudo R2D2 droid they got following them most of the time here. I think he's pretty cool. I like that character. And this old woman ends up dying, which she leaves this impactful message during this funeral that causes rallying up the people to fight back, and causes big riot going on. And Bix, that's the woman that is friends with Andor, that helps with Skarsgård and everything like that. Bix gets like interrogated and tortured by the Imperial woman, and Cassian rescues her. Him, a few of his friends, take off, off world, and he meets up with Skarsgård, thinking he's going to get killed, but of course not. You got at least another year before you get killed by the very thing that you was helping building in that prison, which is kind of ironic, horribly ironic. But yeah, I mean, like I said, it's like I understand this, is a good show. It is a good show, but it's just like I mean, it's like I'm not. I really don't care. Like, I mean, it gives me like a spark of interest halfway through that like kept me along engaged because I was ready to like just cut out halfway through, but it wasn't until like the prison scene that really got me. But uh, but I was like a little bit more engaged with the Mothma stuff. Uh, but yeah, like I said, it's a pretty good show. It's still worth a watch. Um, but anyway, let me know what you guys think of the show. I'm pretty sure I know which way you guys are leaning, but let me know anything likes or dislikes of the show season one. Which was your favorite episode? And don't forget to leave a like, hit the notification bell, follow me in the links in the description, and I will see you guys in a little bit for some reaction videos. Then later on, I got a new walkthrough, a video game walkthrough, Evil West coming up. So look forward to that, and I'll see you guys in a bit. Peace.